Hi, everybody. My name is Zach Wurtzel, and I am the Career Development Specialist in the Rockwell Career Center for undergraduate marketing, non-specialty accounting programs, and entrepreneurship. We have a great guest today for our Recruiters Get Real panel, Gem Nguyen from Doeren Mayhew. Megan Baumel is also going to help me moderate today's panel. Megan is another career development specialist in our office, and she works with the specialty accounting program, so the PPA, the CAP, and the MS Accountancy program. So I'm going to turn it over to Jem to introduce herself, and then we will get started with questions.
Thank you again, Zach and Megan, for inviting me to attend this webinar to share some insights. My name is Gem Nguyen. I am with Doeren Mayhew. We are a mid-sized public accounting firm located in the Galleria. I've been with Doeren Mayhew for a little bit close to a year and a half now. So I handle campus recruiting, but also handle the Houston HR, all those admin fun stuff.
So to get started, can you talk to us a little bit about how you would say that public accounting interviewing might differ from traditional interviewing?
So for public accounting interviewing, I would say it's a lot behavioral interviews. We really focus on getting to know the candidates, and there's no technical questions ever, very rare. A recruiter will ask you for that technical questions, but that's going to be more for the experienced hire. And so the interviewing process, I would say, is getting to know you, understanding why you are looking at public accounting, what do you want to do at the firm, and just really talk about you. They want to see how you're going to be fitting into the culture, as well as what are your plans that you have for yourself. Whether that is pursuing a CPA or having a career growth within X amount of years. So usually the interviewing should be fun. Don't be scared to talk about yourself. It's the time for how the interviewers, I would say, understanding you, seeing where are your passions and what do you want to do in your career.
So Jem, playing off of that, can you talk a little bit about how students can make themselves stand out during the public accounting interviewing process?
So there are many things I would say that you can make yourself stand out. First off, definitely be genuine. We see that if you are down to earth or you have a really interesting hobbies, so be yourself. Don't try to create an image that you think we like for you to be who you are. Just be yourself, be genuine, be authentic. That's what's going to make you stand out. Also think about, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to that company? So maybe there's something that the firm currently they needing this XYZ skills, and you have that interest. You have at least some kind of experience in that XYZ, and so be able to talk about that. So kind of going back to selling yourself, tell them who you are and what are your passions, and that's what really going to make you stand out.
Follow up to that, if you're going to say a student wants to find out what the firm is looking, so those skills that you talked about, what the firm's looking for, where would be good places for them to look to potentially find what those skills would be?
So the first thing I would say is the resume, because that's going to be usually the first screening. So anything that you list on your resume, such as your leadership skills, you're involved in different organizations, or you're a teaching assistant, or even working part-time somewhere, that shows different skills right there. And so in the interview, I would say this is where you want to bring in some examples. For example, if a recruiter asks you, tell me what's your favorite thing so far at your age. So you could talk about enjoying taking this class and what are some of the skills you have learned in that class. Or it could be that you got nominated or got elected as an officer, and how that leadership role has really shaped you. And providing you the skills to demonstrate that you have the potential to be a great leader.
So Jem, you talked about leadership as one of the skills on the resume. Are there other key skill sets that public accounting recruiters are looking for from candidates, or is leadership the primary one?
I would say probably leadership would be probably the top three. The other skills definitely your academic. We definitely know you're getting great background, taking classes at U of H, and so academic have a very strong academic background helps. So it helps us to see, your learning curve, where you could be picking up the basic accounting concept quickly, or you might be struggling. So that's one of the skills. Other skill, I would say a little bit on the technical, maybe you know how to do some coding, or you actually have an interest in advancing your Excel skills. So anything related to technical, even though it might not be heavily related to accounting, but that still helps make you stand out.
Staying on that interview piece, I know you mentioned that behavioral questions may be a big piece to prepare for, but what would you say are some specific questions that may be best for students to think of?
Most of the time, there's going to be some questions that the students will stumble on. For example, something as simple as tell us about yourself. A lot of students kind of wasn't sure, like, do I need to go into my childhood history? Or do I focus on my current state right now as a student? Like, what do I need to go into? So this is where you kind of have to think about what is it that you want the interviewer to know about you. Something that's really make you unique, that's going to make you stand out, because at the end of the day, you want that interviewer to remember something specifically about you, whether you won this award that not a lot of people have won, or you did some kind of challenge or something. That's something that you want to believe, when you finish the interview. But another questions I would say to think about is when you're asking the interviewer um, why they are staying at the firm for this X amount of years. You wanna see, okay, how are you gonna answer that? If they're gonna ask you, well, do you see yourself staying at this firm for X amount of years if we were to give you an offer? So you always want to have a plan in terms of seeing yourself beyond the 3 years mark, because that's what a lot of firms like to see. Is we don't want to hire an intern who come on board as a full-time and then leave within 1 or 2 years. We want to see a long-term career. So be able to think that through. Think about your future goals. What do you want to accomplish within X amount of years? And that leads you to, this is your dream job, and why do you think, this is where you want to stay.
So on the note of interviews, how would you recommend students recover from an interview that they didn't feel they did very well in?
So everybody always think they're going to bomb the interview. I will tell you that I was a student, and I definitely feel your pain when you walk into an interview room and you have no clue what questions your interviewer is going to ask you or what's going to be coming out of your mouth. So the first thing I recommend you is just to breathe and focus on what are your talking points today in this interview. And so there's going to be time you're going to stumble in the interview, and there's going to be some answers that you realize, wait, I should have not said that. And so the best way is to kind of catch yourself if you can, before you go into more details of what you're trying to answer. But if you end up realizing that by the end that you just realize, I couldn't stop, I couldn't hold back, the best way is you can always say, I kind of want to go back to one of the questions you asked me, such as XYZ. Maybe I didn't give my response how I wanted, so I kind of want to reiterate, and that's how you kind of recover from that answer. Another way is follow-up emails, and that's a great way to demonstrate your writing skill. Just kind of say, one of the questions you asked me, XYZ, I forgot to add on or elaborate more, and this is where you go into the email and kind of type out what do you want to say. So that's a second way to recover yourself. But most of the time, if you can catch yourself in that moment and be able to say, wait, I want to go back. And it's okay to tell the interview, I'm excited, I'm nervous, so but I want to correct my answer so I can make my point across. And that's, I would say, the best way to handle it.
Just to follow up on something you mentioned one question ago, so you were talking about that "tell me about yourself" question and the things that you might not want to include in there. But as a recruiter, what do you really want to hear from that question? What would you want a student to say? What are you trying to get at with that question? I know, as you said, sort of trips students up a lot.
A rule of thumb, I would say, when because that's going to be the first question, no matter what, wherever which firm you're going into, they're going to ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself, or maybe walk me through your resume. And so you want to keep the answer, you want to keep it engaging, where it's not going to be a 5-minute answer, but you don't want to keep it too short, where somebody be like, I'm not sure if I'm following you, and not sure if I get more information out of you. So keep it between 60 to 2 minutes max if you can. So in that, tell me about yourself. So think about what makes you unique. Only you know who you are. I can't say, or the recruiter say, oh, I want you to check this box XYZ, because that's what the whole interview is. They want to get to know you. All firms are looking for a diverse background, and that goes with thoughts, that goes with your interests, that goes with, makes you unique, something that makes you unique. But most of the things, I would say most of the common answers that I have heard, and other recruiters can share with that too, is that, some people kind of go into too much detail, saying, maybe too much about family history. Maybe sometimes they slipped saying the reason why they switch major due to XYZ, and then they kind of go into a tangent. The whole point of tell us about yourself is we want to focus within that 60 to 2 minutes of learning who you are. Is it giving us enough information? We know your academic background, because we can see that on your resume, but there's something on the resume that we're not seeing. And so that could be a hobby, that could be a passion of yours, something that you like to do outside of school, but you didn't have the room, the space to put on your resume. And then again, it's just you. So kind of think about your talking points. What makes you unique? So my tip is, write 3 to 5 points that really highlights what makes me unique, and be able to convey that in your interview, in that question.
Gem, another question on the lines of the interviews. We know a lot of recruiters tend to ask students why they're interested in audit or tax. How can I explain whether I want one or the other if I'm not 100% sure yet, especially when we haven't taken classes?
This is very normal. I would say most of you still undecided between tax and audit. And so that's what, you want to come prepared. You want to give your reasons why, if you're looking at both, or you still or if you undecided. And so in the interview, I would recommend is, there's got to be some reason why you're looking at tax and audit, or both, but be able to support those reasons. Don't just say, I'm undecided because I haven't taken my classes yet. Well, we know that because we see that on your transcript, but we want to know, okay, what makes you undecided? So there's got to be some reason that it's making you kind of torn between, you can't pick audit or tax. And so please give some examples, the reason why you undecided. It could be because I'm hearing things from my friends. I have friends in audit who do XYZ, and then I have tax friends who show me XYZ. So it shows some example that you have given some thoughts, but you haven't made that decision yet, due to maybe there's a fact that you want to take your time to learn more about that track. And so the best way to phrase that is say that, I'm actually doing a lot informational interviewing with professionals from both groups, and understanding the roles, the responsibilities, in order to help me make more of an more informed decision. And then, of course, if you haven't taken the class, it's okay to say that, but also kind of piggyback saying that you will be taking those classes in X semester, but you are still doing a lot of research. You are networking to learn more about what's the difference between those two groups.
I think on interviewing, a big piece is the why do I want to work for X firm? What are recruiters looking for? What type of research should a student do and know about to be able to differentiate between firms?
Well, the most simple thing is, we have internet now, so you can always go on the website to look at different firms and see what they have. But another great thing, I definitely recognize the Bauer College of Business is really bringing in employers before COVID. So right now it's going to be a difficult time for employers to come on campus to talk about the firm. And so you have to be a little bit creative for the students, how you're going to be engaging with these professionals during the time right now. And so the best way is get in touch with the recruiter for that X firm and ask them, is there any way that you can connect with any professionals to learn more about the position, if you know what position you are applying for. But most of the time, look at your LinkedIn network, because you have a lot of Bauer alums on LinkedIn that work at X firm that you can connect and reach out and schedule coffee chats or even do some informational interviewing. And that's the I would say that's the best thing to do right now, is even though employees are not on campus, but you can still be proactive in reaching out to your alumni base who works at X firm that you want to learn more about the culture, you want to learn more about what you fit into, what that firm has.
One kind of more thought on the public, on the interview side. We know that students are always asked, what questions do you have for the recruiter? What are some good questions that they should prepare for and ask in the interview process?
The first tip I would say is try to think through the questions that you're asking. Don't ask questions that is already evident based on what's on the website. So don't ask, oh, do you have tax or audit at this firm? We have heard that questions, I would say, before, but do the research. So some of the questions, once you have network with different professionals, with different firms, that is where you're going to pull in asking those questions. So questions you can ask saying that, my interest is in XYZ and I see this firm, your firm has this. I want to know how I can make myself be useful in contributing XYZ to the success. So the conversation that you have with professionals, with recruiters, that's what's going to help you tailor the questions that you want to ask in the interview. There's going to be some generic questions you're going to ask as well. The most common, every student always asks, how does the firm support, continual education? If you want to get your CPA, that's a very common question, but be able to kind of think a little bit more of that questions, such as, how important is getting a CPA for you? And so if you're asking that question, there's got to be a purpose to why you're asking that question, not just because you want to know, oh, are they going to, if that firm is going to cover for my expense.
To change topics a little bit, we had some questions come in, and it's funny. I had one come in for tax and one come in from audit, but they asked the same question. So I'm going to combine them. How do you feel that data analytics is important for both tax or audit, or tax and audit, either way? And what do you think would be good ways that students could get some of that experience that they might need in school?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that should be a question that you need to ask at X firm, because I would say most of the public accounting firms are on the bandwagon for data analytics. And so that skill is used heavily on both tax and audit side, depending on what is it, the type of work that they do and who are the clients they serve. So in order for you to be prepared for this, I would say, start reading some articles online to learn more about data analytics. Maybe there could be a program that you can take in a short amount of time to get a certificate in. And that would be great to put on your resume because that's a good technical skill to have. But data analytic is going to be, I would say, probably the sexy, I want to say it, the sexy skill that's going to be looked highly upon, between now to the next couple of years. And that goes, and with that skill, again, it goes with artificial intelligence because data is now being looked and breaking down. You actually broke down the data and see the trends of everything. And so this helps to serve the clients better. And, when you're advising, when you get to that level in your career where you're going to start being the advisor, the consultant, and helping your clients understand how their business is gonna project or how they're going to really grow the business using those data.
So in addition to the data analytics, for students to be successful in public accounting, are there other hard skills or certifications they should focus on?
If there is a dream position that you saw because you found somebody on LinkedIn or you network with somebody and you saw that, and be able to kind of see the path of that professional. I know some people get certificate in a very special niche because that could be focused on for a particular industry that they are serving their clients. But I would say most of the time we see CPAs to be the trend because that's what you guys are, accounting majors. You're looking to get your CPA, but then of course eventually if you want to add on the financial side of that, you get the CFEs if you wish. There's some I have seen end up going to getting the JD because they want to focus more on the international aspect. The legal side of law, and that kind of goes with tax more, I would say. So kind of think about your long-term goals. Where do you see yourself if you want to make partner or if you want to make a director level? Start looking on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the best way to see, the professionals who have had jobs at previous firms and also see their certificate occasions, what they have, and that kind of helps you kind of mapped out, your career track.
And then continuing on in certifications, you mentioned the CPA. We know that there are some students who will get their CPA through doing the MS accountancy at U of H or potentially elsewhere. Do firms have opinions on students who take the courses to get their CPA eligibility, but don't actually go into the master's? Does it really matter as long as they have CPA, or should they focus specifically on the master's?
So I would say it's a mix. And this is where you should ask that question when you are networking with, firm X, Y, Z. Most of the time, the question for public accounting, we're going to ask, are you going to get your CPA? Because that helps the company to know your career ladder. Where do you see how you want to advance on? But public accounting, I would say, value heavily on the CPA for those that they are seen as manager, director, materials level. And so if you have the opportunity to get the CPA while you're at Bauer, go ahead and do that. And then you could decide that, wait, this might not be the right time. You want to get your experience, but then you want to go back and get your CPA. There's nothing wrong with that. A lot of firms support, their employees getting their CPA if they have been putting in X amount of years, because that helps with the whole career progression.
Cool, thank you. So you touched on it a little bit already, but a little indirectly. I don't know if you use the exact word, but can you talk a little bit about networking, the importance of networking, and the best way to network effectively given the current environment? You talked about utilizing LinkedIn. What would be some ways that students could reach out to people? Like, if you were going to tell a student how to write one of those messages to someone they haven't met before, what would that message look like?
Yeah, so if you're going to be writing an email, for example, reaching out to a firm that you are interested in recruiting with, the best way I would say, make sure you have a very solid introduction in your email, stating your name, what school, and if you're an accounting major for sure. But the reason why you're reaching out, and that could be that you have friends who have gone through the recruiting process with this firm, and that they recommended you to check this firm out, or it could be that you found that firm on a website and something piqued your interest, when you were doing the research on the website. So having that body in the email is really important. Most of the time, recruiters, we do read emails. We do catch on if somebody's copy and paste something from the website, because we can see the font. If you did not change the font right there, you just copy and paste, or if the email actually have a different name of the firm, but for the one that you're writing. And so those things help us to say, okay, you're not very detail oriented, and this email is very generic because you're sending it to a lot of firms. But nice introduction, a nice body. Usually that could be about 2 or 3 sentences, telling the reason why you are reaching out and what you're hoping, to get, whether it's getting in touch with somebody at that firm, or maybe scheduling a call with that recruiter just to learn more about the firm, to see if the fit aligned with your career goals. And then, of course, most of the time you want to include a resume. It's really important to include your resume, because there could be a million of Tom, and we want to see a resume. So that helps us to get a good idea of who you are. And then make sure that you thank them and provide, your phone number. And if you don't hear from the recruiter, it's always best to follow up, I would say, within 3 to 5 business days, just to say you want to touch base and see if you have the opportunity to schedule a call, or whatever that you want to do.
Cool. Yeah, you hit on my exact question I wanted to ask next, but I still want to see if you can go a little bit deeper into it. So what happens if you don't get an answer? You wait the 3 to 5 business days, you email them again, you still don't get an answer. Can you talk about that line of being persistent versus annoying?
Yeah. So I think being persistent, there's nothing wrong with that. And you have to keep in mind, recruiters, we are busy. It's not, we're focusing on just one task. There's other areas of our job responsibilities we have to handle. But if you don't hear back the second time when you reach out, this is where you start to tap into your network. So you go to LinkedIn and you're seeing who works at that firm. It could be through a friend. It could be maybe from a professor that maybe could help you reach out to a professional for that X firm. And so that's how you kind of start to creating this web that you are trying to cast it out to multiple people, and hoping that you can get in touch. Because most of the time, I would say emails do get lost. Especially when recruiters, we are traveling in the peak time, it does get lost. So the delayed response could be a little bit longer. But always look through your network, because Bauer has such a strong and such a large alumni base that you eventually will be getting in touch with somebody at that X firm, no matter what. It's just you have to be able to cast your net, and not limit yourself just to one person that you email into.
We had a student question that came in, I think is really obviously apt. So how would you say that COVID has impacted recruiting at your firm? And do you feel like it's changed dramatically the industry in general, recruiting in the industry?
So COVID definitely through a lot of unplanned things for the firm, not only for Doeren, but definitely for every single public accounting firms right now, because we're trying to figure out how we're going to navigate reaching out to the students and still engaging them on the opportunities, showing them, why they should choose XYZ. And so for that, Zoom, thank goodness for technology now. We have so many different platforms, not only Zoom, but we have Slack, and then we have Microsoft Teams. So those are going to be the avenue that's how we're going to stay in touch with the students now. And so employees, we can't be on campus due to what's happening with COVID. And so virtual recruiting is the new norm now. I know it's going to be very, very nerve-wracking for a lot of the students, because some of you might feel a little bit camera shy, and some of you, this is your first time to talk to someone, just looking at the lens instead of really having that face-to-face interactions. And so you are not going through this. Companies, firms, we are going through this as well, and we're just, trying to figure out how we're gonna be able to get the FaceTime with the student. And so definitely take advantage of signing up to different events that U of H will be hosting in the next couple of months. And then, of course, the first time you talk to recruiters or employers on the camera, it's going to be a little bit awkward. But then the more you practice, the more you're going to get comfortable, you're going to be better at it. But other than that, for our firm specifically, we're still going to be recruiting for interns. And we're hoping that, by spring, everything's going to go back to normal. Interns can go into the office and get more of that professional experience. And hopefully we don't have to do so much virtual work.
So you mentioned virtual interviewing. Can you just give just a little bit more detail on how students should prepare for that logistically? So I see you have a really nice home office background. Can you give advice on just what should be in the background? Where should they do it in their house? What should they wear? Those type of things.
Definitely. So before I made this look nice, I went through many trials and errors. So I would recommend you to practice before you actually make this happen for real. So the most important thing with virtual interviews, I would say, definitely dress as if you're going in for a real person interview, even though we can't see from bottom down, but the top up. For women, you want to be in your suit, a nice blouse. For men, you definitely want to have your ties and your buttons for your collar shirts and jackets ready. But the lighting, I would say, is really important. And this is something I never thought of. But you want to make sure that the interviewer can see your face. We definitely don't want to see black screen, or we're trying to figure out what you look like, because that means we would have to go on LinkedIn and hopefully we can find you so we can see your face, what your face looks like. Definitely keep your hair professional. I know some people are taking advantage of this time right now, not going to get a haircut or getting a trim or shaving, for men especially. But when it comes to interviews, you want to keep it professional, even though, yes, this is only virtual, it's not in person, because it's the image that you're projecting to your future employer, because they are looking to see, can we actually put this candidate in front of our client, even though our clients are 2,000 miles away, but can they look presentable on a Zoom call? I know something like that, some of you probably don't think so much of it, but very little things that we look at. And so background wise, I would say don't have too many shot glasses. I'm going to tell you right there, because some of you probably living, at home and you haven't tried to decorate or keep it neat, but don't display any type of images inappropriately. Try to keep it professional as much as you can. And so it's always nice. I'm a plant person, so I like to have plants because that's kind of help convey my personality. So try to think of, how do you want to convey your personality in your interview? So you could have books lined up, that kind of shows you are interested in reading books. Maybe there could be some quotes that you believed in that you hang in the background. So it could be anything, but make sure to keep it professional, because that's going to be the only impression we have of you. Just do that 30 minutes virtual interview.
In addition to the one-on-one interviews, we know with public accounting, it's a process that often consists of social events and dinners and other things like that. So can you talk a little bit about what recruiters are looking for during those more informal recruiting events?
Pre-COVID, I would say lots of firms host mixers or even office visit, or even pre-interview dinners. So the purpose of these events allow the professionals at that firm to get to know you, see how you interact, outside of school. There's some of you will be legal to drink, and so firm will ask, feel free to order a beverage or two, and this is actually a test as well, just to let you know, to see how you handle yourself. For those who are legal at a legal age to drink, how do you handle yourself with alcohol consumption? Because most of the time, depending on, there's going to be time that you're going to be going out with the team, having dinner with the clients. That could be a happy hour, it could be over a lunch. They want to see how you conduct yourself with a lot of distractions around. So there's going to be lots of noises. There's going to be people moving around, but they want to see, are you keeping a calm, professional, attitude? And the most important thing is, how are you treating your peers? Because there's going to be other students around you asking questions, getting to know that professional. So they want to see, how are you treating this person standing next to you? If you, so that could be your friends, or that could be somebody you've never met or have taken a class with. And so that's what the screening, I would say, kind of comes in, is like, are you going to be someone dominating the conversation, someone who always asks questions and not allowing their peers to ask questions. So those little minor things can really show us, would you be a fit for the firm, for that X firm?
So in kind of talking about those, in watching those interactions and having those interactions, is it better for students to prepare common conversation lines in advance, or is it better for students, especially those who don't really feel comfortable in those environments, to sort of speak off the cuff and see where it goes?
So I would say the best thing is to practice first. Take advantage of your career services office, where you can actually do these practice with your career advisor. So you kind of see how you interact. I know, when I was when I was around that age for the recruiting process, I didn't even know how to handle myself at some of these social networking events, because I'm not sure, when do I jump in to ask a question? When do I interject someone or interrupt? Or if I'm asking too personal questions, those type of thing. So it's good to practice first. It's good to practice with, your friends, somebody who have gone through the process and already have a job, so they can kind of see, the questions you're asking. So that's good. That's a good way for you to be prepared. And then sometimes things just kind of happen organically at these type of events. And so my recommendation is to listen to what your peers are saying in the conversation. So maybe somebody made a comment about something, and then you realize, actually, I can actually add something like that. Maybe pull in from your experience, or pull in something that you learned in the classroom, or something that you read recently, and that helps you kind of feel like, okay, you're making this conversation a little bit more natural. And then for those who felt nervous, I would say very nervous, at these events, just know that everybody's nervous. You're not alone. But try to think of how you're going to make yourself stand out as well, because you don't want to be lost at these event, meaning nobody know who you are. You just kind of being very silent the whole time. So always come with at least, I would say, 5 to 7 questions prepared. So that's going to be your safety questions in case you get a little bit too uncomfortable, but at least you have questions and you can ask. And it could be, whatever that you prepared on that list.
I think that would help students also that maybe feel like they're more introverted to have that prepared questions and stuff that they could definitely have that conversation.
You might recognize there's going to be a professional who's kind of standing there with 1 or 2 students. It's okay to walk over there because, you might enjoy that smaller conversation there instead of being with a larger group.
You're not necessarily looking, you as a recruiter, or recruiters in general, aren't necessarily looking for the loudest person in the room, correct?
Yes. So I would say there's a balance to everything. We're not looking for somebody who's going to be, an extrovert who's dominating at every single conversation, but we're not looking for somebody who's an introvert who can't even speak up or even ask a waiter for a glass of water. So there has to be a balance, to everything. And so that's why get to know yourself more, I would say. That's my advice for the students now. Get to know yourself more. Know, what push your limits, what makes you get really nervous, what makes you not happy, and then be able to know that. And then when you are at a social setting, I would say observe. That's the first thing. Always observe to see who are in the room. Maybe there's someone you recognize from class or that you felt really comfortable with. And so kind of start off with that, kind of build that comfort level, and then slowly kind of branch away and move around the room and get to know other professionals and mingle.
So a little bit more kind of on the dinner that you touched on a bit earlier. Can you talk a little specifically about what students should wear, what they should bring, and what they should order, and kind of those nitty-gritty details?
So most of the time when you're getting an invitation for the dinner with the firm, there's going to be the location. So that's the first thing. Always check at the location, and you kind of see the venue, what that looks like. But in the email, sometimes it will tell you what attire to dress. Now, if you don't see that in the email, it's always good to follow up and ask the recruiter what is the attire for that event. Is it business casual or business professional? And usually you will get a response. But if it's an open-ended, I would say dress to impress. That's the best way how you're going to get a job. It's dress to impress. I wouldn't say go rent a full tuxedo for a dinner. If the venue is more of, an open outdoor bar, a beer garden or something like that, I would not want to see somebody dressed in a tuxedo to that dinner event. So kind of check the venue first, and then be able to make that decision. But always it's better to be safe to do business professional. It doesn't hurt because you are dressing for the job that you want, I would say 3 years from now. So kind of have that mindset.
Can you clarify a little bit about what business casual and what business professional means?
Business casual, definitely depending on the firm and the day. Sometimes you can wear jeans to these events, but business casual, I would say slacks, and then a button-up shirt. You don't need a tie for that unless you into wearing a tie. Go ahead, you can wear that. For the ladies, definitely slacks, and a nice shirt, blouse, or wear a nice cardigan. And so that's the business casual side, where you're not too casual, but you still look professional, but not to the business professional standard. So business professional, this is where, just think of it, you're going to be acting as almost like the CEO. So you definitely want to wear the suit, the tie, and definitely, making sure everything looks clean, especially for men and women. make sure you iron your shirt if you're going to be wearing a button-down shirt, because that's the image you're giving, because you are dressing for the job that you want beyond X amount of year, not just for that internship. So make sure you iron your shirt. That's really important. We have seen students showing up without a tie, for men especially, to an interview. So that's what business professional is. You are setting that high standard in the business world. So suit and tie, make sure your hair is nicely combed, you are having a very clean, well-groomed, for facial hairs, things like that. For females, definitely suit up. Don't wear any loud color. I would say that for a lot of you who might love pink or some kind of neon color, try to avoid any loud color. Try to keep it very reserved, navy, black, a nice darker color if possible, but don't go beyond the neon color. I would recommend that. And definitely dress to impress. That's what's going to be your business professional.
I think that's awesome advice just for our student knowledge. We have a suit closet in our office for when our office eventually reopens. We also have community resources for both men and women to provide professional dress. And they both are doing mobile suiting at the moment, curbside suiting. So if any student that's listening needed professional dress that Gem just described, that's something that our office will definitely be able to help you get. The last question I think we had on this type of event, what is your view on, is this something where students need to bring a portfolio? Should they be taking notes? Or is this really more of a get to know you type thing?
Yeah, so at any of these social event dinners, it's always good to bring your portfolio. It's always good to bring extra copies of your resume, because sometimes professionals who haven't had a chance to go attend at any of these recruiting events, but they really enjoy the conversation that you have with them, you can always ask them that, would you like to see a copy of my resume? So that way they can have that in hand and they can take it back to the office the next day and kind of look through, your resume. And also, if you have business card, that's great, but always ask professionals at these events for business cards. Rule of thumbs, you want to follow up with the people that you met at the event. Make sure that you have a conversation with these individuals instead of just going around the room and try to collect every single business card. Because when you do the follow-up emails, you want to connect what was said in that conversation, like in that moment, because that's what's going to help the professionals to remember you, is you basically giving them a quick overview of what was being conversed. Something that stood out, they say to you, or they say something to you directly. And so the follow-up emails is definitely going to be key to helping that professional remember you. And usually, they pass that email along to recruiters when we're looking at applications for interviews.
So we had a student ask a question about working internationally with a US CPA. Is that something that's transferable? Is it something where they'll be able to get a CPA here and go work wherever they would want with that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the first thing before you even take that risk of moving overseas and have the US CPA, you want to make sure that you're having the conversation with the group to help you know, okay, what will you be doing? Are the clients going to be US clients, or what type of work you're going to be doing? Because most of the time, if you're going to be working overseas, you most likely will have to get a different license, so that way you can practice, in that country. And so situations like that has happened before, where professional will have to retake a certain kind of CPA exam for that country. So that's why having that initial conversation with the recruiter and also talking to the professional for that group in that particular country will help you kind of make a decision like, okay, how am I going to plan for that transition if I have to take a test just to practice in that country.
Awesome. Thank you for that advice. Super helpful. So we're getting pretty close to the end of our hour. Every one of these Recruiters Get Real series I've ended with asking the same question, and I'm going to end our entire series since it's our last event that we're doing throughout the summer with the same question. Can you give one piece of advice, or maybe your biggest piece of advice that you'd give to students right now that are going into recruiting during this somewhat difficult time to recruit? So what would be the biggest piece of advice that you give to students right now?
My biggest piece of advice, I would say, is start to be proactive using your network. And that is, first of all, create a LinkedIn account. That's really important. And really do a lot of the research on the different firms, because now a lot of the firms are updating the website just to kind of go along with the COVID-19 situation, where they're going to start hosting a lot of virtual events in the fall for students who don't need to, sign up through their career website. And so that's, I would say, definitely use your LinkedIn account, start connecting with recruiter, and even get in touch with recruiters that you have met, 1 or 2 semesters ago when you were not ready to start your recruiting process, and kind of touch base with them and ask them, is it okay? Can I schedule a call just to kind of learn more about what have changed since the last time I met you at X event, in this X year. And so that helps you to be more proactive and start to see, okay, what are the options out there right now when it's time for you to head into your recruiting season. There could be some hidden opportunities that are not being advertised at the moment. And so that's why you use this time right now before you going back to heading into your fall semester with a lot of homework. This is the downtime now. So it's good to reach out to, professional that you have met before, and, try to schedule informational interviews or even coffee chats just to kind of catch up, and show interest in what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, sometimes there's a job for you that you didn't even think it's out there, just because you've been taking the time to network and staying in touch with with the professionals.
Well, Gem, thank you so much. I think that was super good advice, and throughout the last hour, you hit on a lot of the things that we get asked by students all the time, and I think your advice was spot on. Gem, thank you so much. Megan, thanks for helping moderate this. I think everyone here got some great information, and we will be doing some more employer webinars, I'm sure, throughout the fall semester too, so keep an eye out for emails about those, and hope everyone has a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, and thank you again, Zach and Megan, and I wish everyone good luck when you're heading back this fall for the recruiting, and stay safe and take care, everyone.